I've talked a little bit about throw loops, but I want to cover Lord Damascus. We are having Bueller, love Damascus. Him and I had a great conversation on Twitter. I highly recommend you read it. But it started with this. Throw loops are sleep. You don't get hype for you throwing the other person a bunch of times. Damascus. You got to hit the soundboard. You have this like mix. You got to hit that shit every time you throw someone. Something as common as a throw shouldn't give a pure guessing situation. The interesting thing to me about that in this game, Street Fighter doesn't have a lot of high-low or left-right mix-ups that are incredibly nefarious usually, right? And sometimes they do. But in this game, there's actually just none if you parry. It legit doesn't exist. Throw and strike are actually the only two true mix-ups in this game, as long as parry is a factor. So throw, as simple as it may be, is actually the most important thing. One thing that came up a lot was make throws like SF5, where after you throw them, you get a meaty, like medium move in the corner, but you don't get a meaty throw. So you can't throw loop if your opponent mashes jab. Now, first of all, I don't know how the throws work in SF5 matters for this game, because this game is not Street Fighter 5, right? Second, the reason throws are not like this, I feel like should be very simple. If you switch it so that once the offensive player throws you, they get a knockdown in which they can't throw you meaty anymore. They have to do a strike. You are susceptible to losing to perfect parry every single time. And perfect parry can turn into side swaps or corner carry out of the corner or back throw or whatever, right? And it can immediately lose you the position. It then becomes that the offensive player has to guess on their own offense every time, is this person gonna perfect parry or not? And if you try and bait their perfect parry and you do nothing, because parry is so strong, it has no recovery, it's never punishable by anything that's not a throw, right? Really low risk, really powerful right there. And jabs in this game, unlike Street Fighter 5, lead to very high reward very consistently because of your super gauge and your drive gauge, especially together. You can get huge reward. Many times you can get side swaps off of them. Many times you can get big damage if you have lots of bar to dump off of them. Jabs are pretty scary to get hit by. What me as the attacker, what I have to do if the throws are like Street Fighter 5, is I have to walk up and strike, because if I don't, I lose to everything else. All of the good defensive moves right now are compounded. They're much better if throws are like this. And this is not accounting for the fact that generally this game has huge normals in mid-range and really good projectiles. So it's very common that the character that wins neutral is way ahead in drive gauge in most games. So once you make it in, it's pretty likely that your drive gauge is not great and your opponent's is pretty good. So now if you don't have offense, can't get a throw without drive rushing or risking perfect parry, or you get mashed on and you die and you're down on drive gauge, it's pretty tough. This game has huge normals. You need strong offense once you make it in. The other thing is, and people say this, I assume they just don't think about this maybe. They always just say like, well, if it's like Street Fighter 5, dude, you just do your strike or whatever, and then you just take your pressure after. What pressure? What pressure do you get in this game after you do a strike? The game doesn't have plus frames. I don't know if you've noticed. What do you do in this game if you do a spaced out medium attack on your opponent's wake up or whatever, or like even a pretty close medium attack on your opponent's wake up? You get like jab after if they're blocking, and then that's it. You can't chain or do anything else that doesn't lose to a reversal button. And then you're pushed out and you're negative now. You have to spend drive gauge if you want plus frames, right? The game is designed that way, because imagine if the jabs in this game were +2 and drive rush jab was +6 on block all the time. Then that's just, everything's all fucked up, right? You can't do all that. There's not a lot you can do on offense if you just are getting strikes. So offense is just way worse if throws don't give you throws in the corner. It's like way worse. Just remove throw loops and parry. Great suggestion. How about you just make the game like a completely different game? Smile, because I got thrown 3 times and I'm mad. That's basically how people talk about it. And the other thing is, I don't know why, but like every time people talk about throw loops, no one ever says like, yeah, I ate 5 throws in a row and then I mashed correctly, or I did low forward on wake up and then I just won. Like no one ever talks about how little damage it often does, or like the scenarios where people just hold up forward on wake up. You look at that versus like all the other ways you die in fighting games. Getting thrown like 7 times in a row is like maybe the most times you can guess wrong and still win. I don't know, dude. They're just mad that they got thrown a lot of times in a row. Me too. I mean, I'm not happy. Look, I'm not telling you I'm the #1 biggest fans of throw loops ever, but like it makes sense why it's in the game, right? Throws leave you really far away when they're teched in this game too. They really thought about so many little interactions in this game and how stuff would work. If it's too expensive to run good offense, or if running too good offense is too risky, then people just won't do it, right? And they'll just slow the game down a whole bunch. And Street Fighter 6 is a fast game. It's fun to play because of that, I think. Also, throws being strong is very normal. Can you think of very many games where throws are like really weak? Street Fighter 5 throws are weak, but Street Fighter 5 also, after your throw, you get a plus on block hit confirmable medium punch that you can walk down and do like 7 times in a row. Dragon Ball Fighters, bro, you can TOD someone off a throw. Yeah, DNF throws are probably a great example, and you probably know how I feel about the throws in that game. Ooh. Third strike throws, dude, you know what happens to you when you get thrown in third strike? Have you ever watched a Chun-Li match in that game? Most games throws are pretty strong. Like gear throws are really strong. You can combo after them. You can OTG after them. You often get safe jumps or setups or mix-ups or left rights off of them. They're also the fastest thing you can do in the game. Dude, in Street Fighter 4, when you got thrown, oftentimes you got unblockable. In fact, the entire game was built around beating crouch tech because people were crouch teching for their life so that they didn't get thrown. This could be you. Cammy's leg just like morph through your head as you get unblockable. Like this is just unblockables from Cammy throwing you. It was like if you block left, it would hit you right and vice versa. And like there was like technically kind of sort of a way to like maybe last minute wiggle and sort of block. It never happened. They're unblockable. People didn't try to block them. They tried to like mash or backdash or DP or like they, you know, they would try to do something and hope that the opponent fucked up and they could get out. Look, if you think the throws are too strong in this game, you could be right. They are very strong. Everything is pretty strong in this game, right? The strikes are really strong. Think about how far the normals are, how good the projectiles are. Think about how good all of the other aspects of the game are. If you want throws to be weaker, you have to change a lot about the game. I don't think parry can stay as strong if throws are bad. And frame data would have to change. It would be like compiling a snowball effect of changes you have to make throw loops worse. I mean, you could do it, and I think maybe they will if they think that there's a better way to build the game around it. But strong throws like make a lot of sense. Why don't you want throws to be strong? Especially given left, right, overhead, low mix-ups are as weak as they've ever been because of parry. Somebody mentioned like, well, Guilty Gear has throw protection. They should just put throw protection in Street Fighter 6. Like, dude, there's a 1-button parry that beats left, right, overhead, and low. And if you time it correctly, you get a reversal out of the scenario. And I can't meaty throw you? Huh? This is maybe the worst game to say just do X about, because like a good example is something like somebody said drive reversal should cost more meter and be safe or something. I think its biggest problem is not that it's unsafe on block. Like you don't even want it to be blocked. You use drive reversal against drive rush cancels, right? So someone spends 3 bars to drive rush, you spend 2 bars to drive reversal, you are now meter positive. If you make it cost more, that interaction is no longer meter positive for you. Another thing is if drive reversal is safe on block, it's now plus on block if your opponent's in burnout. Drive reversal's current problem is that it gets supered on reaction by a lot of things, right? That's its current problem, and that really doesn't happen unless you're playing at a high level. Do you really want to spend 3 bars on drive reversal even if it's safe? I think you definitely, there's no way you want to do it, because that could just be your own drive rush. That seems terrible. And its current most common use case is because it's cheaper than the option it's beating. That's 3 neutral DJ jump scares. That's what I'm saying. It's scary. Yeah, this game, it's complicated. Like you guys, I'm sure you'll remember early on in the game, people's first impressions, particularly back in the beta times and stuff, was like people thought 3-bar drive rush was like way too expensive. They're like, dude, it costs 3 bars to drive rush my normal, half my gauge. That can't be worth it. Like imagine thinking that being cheaper is better. Yeah, and drive impact was too cheap. It should cost 2 bars or 3 bars or whatever to do drive impact. Like, I don't think people think about the fact that drive impact costs you gauge when you counter their drive impact. That means if you have 2 bars or less and they have the drive gauge lead, then now you're burnt out. And it gets you out of a lot of defensive scenarios that otherwise would be extremely powerful. Every suggestion you make about the game, you have to sit and think about the many like 700 things it messes with within context of the rest of the stuff that's happening. But like most people who are just like in the chat like Lamal do this, they don't think about anything else that it affects. They just think like, I don't like being thrown, therefore the game needs to change throws. Like these things are they're all connected. It's very clear that they thought about all of this. They thought about perfect parry scaling. They thought about the throw situation a lot. They thought about the frame data situation. They thought about how offense was built in the game. And then somebody got thrown 3 times in a row and was like, I hate it. Get me out. You know, you're like, fuck. All right, fair enough.